Okay, so hi everybody, welcome. This is the, what, are we on the fourth session? Of 6. 4 weeks now that we've gotten into this, how to build your course. Basically going to talk to you guys today about graded assignments. So you're obviously going to have work that you need to assess students, and we're definitely going to want to talk about some of our options on doing that. So I'm going to skip on to session 4, which is in my asynchronous online resource here, prepare graded assignments. And the first part that I want to talk about is actually pretty simple, pretty straightforward, is that Canvas, if you haven't noticed by now, which you guys are piloteers, you've been using it a long time, they have their own language. And I definitely want to point out that the use of the terms assignments and activities is different. So assignments is things that have the option to be graded. You'll see in this image here, not graded. It's only the option to be graded that qualifies something as an assignment. Whereas an activity is any sort of interaction or information that's going on. So it's more inclusive, honestly. Activities can include everything plus assignments. So I do like to take a minute to point out that difference, because how some of the system functions is determined based on the designation. So when you're in a course, and I'm going to actually make this a little larger so that we see our menu over here. There is what's called the course stream. If you click this button on the right-hand side, you will see the recent activity. And this actually includes events and assignments. So it's all, right? Some are graded and some are not. So just to let you know that the whole big picture is going to show up here for you and for your students. So if I go into student view, my students will also see this course stream, but again, they haven't started working. I'm actually never going to have them in a demo course, but if I did, then some information would start to populate here. I'm going to leave student view. It should pop right back out, and I'm going to go back to the home page. So just like to point out the difference in language, terminology, and the course stream. So that is a feature that you may use or you might want to tell your students about. And then want to skip to rubrics. Now, you're probably wondering, like, why talk about rubrics and not just get straight into how to create assignments? Well, a lot of things in Canvas are easier if you consider your workflow. So doing your rubrics first and then being ready to attach them to your assignments when you create or edit them, it just sort of flows a little bit easier. By no means is it how you have to do it. You can create all of your assignments and then go create your rubrics and then go back and associate them with those assignments if you chose to. It's not the end of the world if you don't do it this way. I'm going to click on rubrics in my course menu, and I'm doing this in my sandbox demo. I can also do the same thing in my academic shell demo if I wanted to, either way. So you'll see, if you've never visited this, that tutorial information can pop up and you can just click the arrow to hide it. Anytime you're working in Canvas, if you click that arrow, it will bring that information back to you so you can kind of learn as you go. I don't have any rubrics in this course, and so that might be an indicator that you guys don't use them. But if you do, you can click the plus button to add one, and it's going to have the same functionality as just about everywhere else. You're going to add a title, and I'm just going to call it an example rubric. You're going to have criteria, ratings, and points, and you can add an additional row by clicking the plus criterion button, or you can, so you can do a new one, or you can choose to duplicate. Let's say you have something fairly similar, and then you can lower your amount of work. You can click the pencil button to edit and change that information on the one that pops up by default and any of the others that you add. You'll be able to change the rating score and the titles here and give more information. And then of course, you can, add if you want it to be 3 ratings, if you want it to be 5, whatever you've got going on, you've got that full customized options. I'm actually going to just click create rubric, and I'm going to click my rubric list. So now you can see if I had rubrics already in here, which you may in some of your courses, they would look like this with the red link, and you just would click the name to be able to go in and see the details, as well as to get back into that editing space. So once you've built your rubrics, you can then associate them with your graded activities or your graded assignments, if we're going to use the right term.
Quick question, Melissa.
Absolutely.
Sorry. So if I've got a rubric in, for example, in my spring course in PT Reasoning 2, and I want to use it in my fall course, can I pull that rubric that's in another course into that one?
You absolutely can. So there's a couple of ways to do it. One way I'll show you second. I'll just, like, a word of warning, I'm not entirely familiar with all of the behaviors of that process. So there was some questions that came up on, what happens if I make changes on a rubric that I pulled in from another course. More on that in a second, but let me just show you the way that I think is the safest and the easiest. So if you go into settings, and I'm going to zoom out just one click here so that I can see a normal view. I'm going to import course content, choose to copy a Canvas course, find the course that you've got that rubric in. Let's say, for example, I have some other stuff in another course over here. So I'll say select specific content and actually do this so you can see. And when I select, I can come down here and I can get whatever rubric I want, and I just don't select anything else, and it will just copy that over. So I'm going to do the research. It's going to say queued for just a moment or two because that's not much of a copy. And then when I go back to rubrics, I now have that one in this course. So I personally like that method more than the one I'm about to show you. So let's say we go into discussions, because discussions is one graded assignment option for you in Canvas. And I want to make this practical one Q&A. I want to add a rubric to, let's do the introduce yourself discussion. Like, maybe I'm going to give it a graded couple of participation points for it, and I want them to have some sort of standards to follow. Well, when you click on the name, it's going to open up just like the zoomed in view. And then when you click the three dots on the right, you actually will have, typically, is this not it? Hold on, it did this to me last time. Hold on one sec. So when you click edit, and you have to make it graded, because it won't let you attach a rubric to something that's not graded. So once you have that part set up, then you can click the three dots and add a rubric to that discussion board. Well, in this space, I can find a rubric from elsewhere, and every single course that I have access to comes up in this list. So theoretically, you wouldn't have to copy it the way I just showed you, and I could come in and find, let's see, let's find this one, use this rubric example here. I'm going to attach this one, and now, it's done, and I can just do that. However, I just kind of like the idea of housing whatever I'm using for this particular course with this particular course. So that's really the only, like, cautious approach I take to that option. So
Sorry, I'm kind of tracking most of what you said. So the first option you said was probably better. And how did you pull that? So you went to rubrics.
So exactly, I went to rubrics.
Through there or through over to the left? What's your preferred method?
Okay, my preferred method was in settings. I copied the rubric from wherever I wanted it. So in settings, it's just taking a minute to load. Okay. I went to import course content, and I copied it from the course that I was using it in.
So that's how you do course copy. So I can, like, if I go to settings, copy course content, then I can go to any other course I have access to and copy just bits and pieces of it into the course I'm into.
Absolutely. And it's called select specific content.
Okay, so that'll bring the rubric into the course, but it doesn't attach it to an assignment yet? Or does it?
Correct. That's
Okay.
what, that's the second part. Then you can go and attach it to whatever assignment you chose to. So, and that does bring me to say rubrics cannot be edited once they've been added to more than one assignment. So it kind of like works with that workflow. If you plan to change it, if you want to edit it, if it's attached to multiple places, that editing feature goes away. So there's a lot
Is
of
it even within the course? Like if I use the same rubric for like 3 or 4 repeated assignments?
yes, it will not allow you to edit it once you've done that.
Okay.
And it's just trying to save us from ourselves on, you know, not making changes after we've given students a set of standards. Okay, so yeah, editing and adding rubrics, all pretty straightforward. You can do the same when you're going into your assignments. So if you click on the name of an assignment and we click edit, takes a second to load, but it should give us the option to attach a rubric. So where am I going with this? Well, it's supposed to be a button there. I'm going to get out of here and see if it's in, Well, that's a new feature. I'm not really sure what's going on with that. I have to figure out why it wouldn't have been there, but it's supposed to be an option, attach a rubric. And if anybody sees it and I'm just missing it, shout out the answer. But maybe, yeah, no, it should be there. Okay, I'll double check in when I send out the follow-up email. I will definitely clarify that point before I add any other information. Maybe that comes up. So I definitely want to talk though about editing and building your graded options. We've got discussions that can be graded. You've also got quizzes that can be graded. And then you've got all of your assignment options. So you're probably all super familiar with this if you're using Canvas already in the pilot program, but if you're new and you're just coming in, the assignments feature is what controls your entire gradebook. So everything you build on the assignments page is going to affect what's set up in grades automatically. So you don't have to tell it to do that. It just happens in the back end. It also knows that if you build a discussion in the discussions area or a quiz in the quiz area, it adds it automatically to this assignments page. Everything that gets points will be connected here, no matter where in the course you add it. So you can add all of these things in modules, you can and build them right there, or you can go to their actual tool and do it from there. So multiple ways to accomplish the same goals throughout the system. And it knows if you do that, it's going to put it here. So for example, I'm going to go to discussions. I added my introduce yourself to be graded. I can leave the other ones as not graded, but when I come over here to assignments, you'll now see that and it's added into wherever it was that I asked it to be built. So let me tell you very specifically, when I click edit, it popped up and it gave me options when I chose to make it graded. This is connected assignment group right here, and which group you pick is connected to each box that starts with a gray header that you create for groups. So there's lots of different boxes in this particular course, and they're probably not finalized because I need them to match my syllabus, but that's how they're connected. So what I choose here is represented by each of these boxes. So this particular one, I'm going to make it an assignment. It's not self or peer related, so I'm just going to put it with the assignment category. And then I can also require peer reviews if I choose to make that a thing. You can manually assign people or automatically, which is a little bit more convenient. Now, everybody does have to realize with peer reviews, it's a little bit more of a complex feature. Students sometimes have a lot of questions about it and they're not sure what to expect. There is some documentation on it. And this one, if you choose it, will ask them to, obviously have a due date that something is due, and then the assign the reviews must come after the due date. So if you want them to turn their paper in by Friday so that they then peer review it by Monday, you would put the first date that the paper is due in the due date, and then assign the reviews after that's done. So maybe 2 days, 2 minutes after, or a day after, if you want to give some cushion for people who want to turn in their paper late. If the student that is assigned to somebody else does not turn in their paper on time, then they will not be given that ability to review because the person didn't participate. So it is reliant on people's behaviors. You also get to add multiple assign variables. So let's say you want to assign section 1 gets a due date of Tuesday, section 2, I want to give assignment that's due on Thursday. I can control that here. And then I can also add with individual users. If you've got a student who has a bigger window to do accommodations, you can manage that here. And whatever you set for whoever it's assigned to will only apply to those people. So you can have available and until, and they do not have to be the same in any way. So once you actually choose these things, and I'm going to make this assignment due in June the 18th and click save. And so it's worth 0 points, but that's okay. I'm going to come back over to my assignments area, and it is, going to, if I refresh the page, reflect in my assignment category. And I do also have the ability to drag and drop and rearrange to organize in this space. So if I change my mind, instead of having to go in and edit, I can just drag and drop it and it will update it for me. So one of the things that's super important about this assignments page is that how you organize the information is how your grades are going to calculate. So one of the things I need to do is open up my modules and find my syllabus. So with this particular course, I'm not sure that it's listed. It's here somewhere. Now I'm going to actually go to my files and find my syllabus. So that way I can show you exactly what we're talking about. So I'm just using the search feature, looking for the syllabus, and I'm going to choose to open that. I'm going to move this to split my screen. And this one. Okay, so in this space, all I have is a template. That's not good. I probably should have double checked that first, but I will tell you in another course, I have plenty to choose from. And I can show you that when I come into this other course here, I'm going to show you the difference. So this particular category I have of tests, and all of my tests are going to be here, but I decided over here, I've got quizzes, and I'm just kind of looking at it from how is it organized. And so there's tests, there's quizzes, but it's kind of all over the place. And I'm probably going to need to clean that up in order for my grades to calculate accurately. Now that's just because the way it comes over from Blackboard, it doesn't know what exactly it was trying to do in Canvas, and it gets a little messed up. So I'm going to start with creating a quizzes average group. And that's because every assignment that's in a group is going to be averaged together. So I like to try to name them to represent what they've got going on. So in the student view, when they're checking their grades, they can kind of tell more so how the system functions because they won't have any other reason to know. So I can come over here and I can say move to, and I can tell the system to put everything elsewhere based on what I've chosen and say move, and it will move it. Or I can drag and drop, whatever's easiest. And I can start putting all of my stuff to where it goes. And once I've organized that, every row that you see for every item is going to have a column in the gradebook, and every group is going to have an average column in the gradebook. The additional on top of that calculation is going to be being able to weight your groups. So in the top right, you've got 3 dots, and you can choose to do assignment groups weight. And this box will come up that you have to check. And then every single one of your groups can be set to be a percentage of your grade, which is how most people, you average all of your exams, and then your tests end up being, 30% of the final grade. And you can enter these in. Any that you leave for 0%, they can be worth points to give the students feedback and see about their performance, but it won't be calculated into the final grade. Once you've entered that,
Can I make a comment on that?
Absolutely.
Because that was something I kind of ran into a stumbling block on, and that others might run into, is if you do an individual quiz and then a group quiz and you weight those differently, you don't want to group them, because if you group them, then everything's going to get the same weight. Am I interpreting that right?
Absolutely. So that's correct. So you, like how I have this information here on this, in this particular one where it came over 60 points and 50 points, I would definitely want to move those out and have, everything that's within one group worth the same amount so that the average works out well. I mean, you can mathematically mess with this to be worth different points. It's just if you want it to be worth the same amount or not, you need to put them in different groups.
So for example, I had initially had the individual quiz worth like 75% and the group quiz worth 25% of the overall quiz grouping. So if you wanted to do that, you'd have to have, like if you took the whole quiz group and you wanted it worth 10%, you might have your individual quizzes worth 6% and your group quiz is worth 4%. Am I on the right track?
Yes.
Okay.
So when I set grades up at UT Health, they did, everything was based on individual and team as well. And having that separate group, putting all of the individual quizzes here, and then putting another group that would be team, and having the weight for each represent accordingly is the best solution for sure. Those are some really good points. Does anybody else have any questions about how that calculates?
So can you move one assignment to a different group? That's fine, right? You said earlier? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. So you can drag and drop to put things where they go. It can be a little bit tricky because of just the browser behavior. So you have to kind of drag it to the exact right spot to get it to not bounce out. Don't be discouraged and try again. And if you just have trouble, maybe if you're working on a tablet or something small, you can use the menu option to move to and then select sometimes.
Okay. And one question I had, I don't know if you're going to get to it today, was like it seems like the overall total for the students is like hidden. And
so
not like what has to be graded or not graded or hidden or published or unpublished in order for the students to be able to see their grades.
Absolutely.
Overall grades.
So I'll start off first by, we'll remind you about more options in your course settings. So that course settings button down here, I click that link, come down, and I've got that unassuming more options. It doesn't look like anything important, but it is. Here it has high totals in the student's grade summary. By default, that might not be checked anymore, But if you're in the piloteer program, it may have been checked. So definitely make sure that you don't have a check mark here or it's hiding your totals from your students. So that's one thing to be careful about. I do not believe that it comes on by default anymore, but if I'm wrong and you run across it, please let me know. I think we've got it fixed.
Okay, I'll go check that because I was just like, I don't understand why they can't see the total.
Yes, it's more than likely, I'm 99% sure that that's the problem. And then I'm going to go over to grades and show you all the other features.
I'm not sure if this is the same thing, but I had a similar problem, Nathan, where it looked like the total was hidden from the students, and it fixed itself once I posted another assignment that was hidden. So like if you have something like one of the columns that's just not posted yet, and it still looks like it's hidden, then the total is going to be hidden too, I think. At least I think that's what happened with me, is it once I posted that other hidden column, the total became visible as well.
So
Nathan, are you scrolling all the way over? Because the percentages are there if they scroll all the way to the right.
yeah, I mean, they can see all the the averages per category, I guess. But the total is something that has a little, like an eyeball with a slash through it.
Yeah, it's that settings option. I'm almost positive.
Okay, well, one thing also I wasn't sure about was I used to just grade a percentage of the assignments that were submitted and others not grade. So like if I had 15 assignments, I would randomly grade 5 well and the other ones not. But I didn't want the students to know which ones would be graded or not graded until the end. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So the best way to handle that, the easiest, I would say, I don't know about the best way, but the easiest way to handle that, if you go to edit any of these groups, you have the option to drop the lowest scores. And so if you choose, drop 3, because you're only going to grade 3, like say there's 6 altogether, you're going to want to just say drop the 3 lowest, and then you can say never drop at the end, right? Like you can come back and change this and say never drop, and then choose the 3 you actually want to take the grades on that you paid really close attention to. And then when you save that, it's going to automatically apply that rule to all of the assignments that are in that space. So you just kind of have to plan it out a little bit, but you can set it up to handle it for you. But it's only one way. I've seen many different ways that people do it. So sometimes they say, well, I'm going to wait and like surprise them. And so each week there'll be like a new, either the assignment pops up or it doesn't. So I've seen a lot of different approaches, but I think setting it up where you ask them to turn it in every single time, but you only are actually grading a select few and you're dropping the rest of it. I think it keeps them honest. Of course, if you've got another instructional reason where maybe you don't want them to spend the time doing the work and you only want them to focus on the ones they're getting grades for, then you definitely would want to tell them ahead of time, you don't have to bother. So there is definitely control over the groups. I'm going to jump back into the gradebook and talk about this a little bit. So we had talked about the totals column was being hidden from the students. And this one is controlled by that checkbox that's in your course settings. It's just a really bizarre little feature, but that's the way it works. And then as you are taking a look at these, you see I have some are published, some are unpublished. So I control what I'm looking at. So these 3 drop-down options at the top left are going to give me some control over what I'm doing. The first one, I'm going to have to view my learning mastery paths. Now that's a topic I'll be talking about next week with modules and the structure. So modules you can lock down by date, you can do prerequisites, you can do requirements. So you have to do all of the things in this module before you're allowed to move on. Well, mastery paths are where you can say, you have to get a 70% on this activity before you move on to this next thing. And so it's really controlling the student's experience through your course based on their scores of what they're doing on the work. So this is the view for that. You can also look at the individual view per student. If you just want to focus in on understanding, maybe you're having a conference, you can do that where you hide the rest of the information, and then you could show the student what's kind of going on. And then you've also got your gradebook history. So you'll always be able to go back and see what changes have been made over time. This next drop down though is the view, where you're going to kind of control how you're looking at the gradebook. It's very useful, but just remember, if you've made a choice, the next time you come to look at it, it sometimes keeps that memory, and is, if you want to see something different, remember you made some change here, and that's why you're viewing the way you're viewing it. So you can select from all of these different options. You can also filter. So let's say all of you guys in PT, you teach by modules, and you only want to grade module 1, you can do that. You can say, I want to filter modules, and then you can come over here and you can say, I want to just look at everything for case 15. And all of the assignments that are in case 15's module will display, and everything else will be hidden. So you control this view on filters, and then you can take it off. So the check mark there is going to be that indicator of whether or not I'm looking at it. You've got statuses, but more importantly, you've got the check mark on these below columns. It's going to be for notes and unpublished. So as you can see, I've got my unpublished red words showing. If I uncheck that, they will go away, and then I can just bring them right back if I choose to. Notes is very useful. It will pop another column into here if I have it checked. So I checked it off, and I can now keep track of absences or whatever sort of anecdotal records I want to keep with each student, and I can save them. So that's a useful feature. I'm going to have one column for every assignment. So every single thing that is on this assignment page is going to be represented in my gradebook. If you don't want something here, you delete it here. If you scroll over, you're going to see that each group, as I'm scrolling, has, in my weighted amounts, going to be represented, right? This is going to be the average column that's worth a certain weight. So those are going to be at the end, and you can rearrange that. And then this third drop down, you've got where you can import and export. So anytime you're going in to mess with the gradebook, best practice, export it. If you change something that you then decide you want to undo, you could import that original export to revert everything back to the way it was before you got started. And then you've also got 2 more ways to control kind of what's going on. You've got your grade posting policy is over in this widget. I clicked on the little icon here to the right of the search bar. It's got your late policy option. If you are using a late policy, every single assignment that has a due date associated with it will have the late policy you set applied. Whether you want it to or not, it doesn't differentiate your preference. It just does it across the board. So keep that in mind. If you're co-teaching with someone else, make sure you have that conversation. If they're building part of the course and you're building part of the course, and you have maybe some practice assignments that you want people to be able to do repeatedly, don't enter a due date, and then the late policy will not apply to them. The grade posting policy, though, this is something you can change to automatically post. That's what it is by default. Or if you want to manually post, this will apply to every single column in the entire gradebook, not just one. And so if you're just wanting to control a single one, you're going to want to go to the actual column you're wanting to control. And when you get to a published one, you can click the 3-dot menu and you can do the grade posting policy for this particular column.
So this is how to keep the grades hidden if you,
Yes.
right.
If you do not want them to see them as soon as it's been graded, they will automatically release by default, but you can turn it off.
Okay, and that's really the only reason you'd want to manually post them, is to keep the grades hidden until you say, go ahead and post.
Exactly. So really it's more, I think that it's more useful for, if you've got, papers you're grading, something that's, just not as simple as a multiple choice quiz. Okay, so that's really the grades, but I do want to jump on over into quizzes and talk about that as well. So we took a detour. It's all good information, but we did kind of skip quizzes before we talked about the gradebook, but I do want to take a moment to show you. So let's see, I'm going to close this and come back over here into my course. Okay, so I've got quiz 5. I'm going to show you how you can either build a new one or edit. I'm going to first talk about editing. Click on the name and you can either preview it here to just take a look, or you can click edit. And once you've clicked edit, the first tab that comes up is the details. You can change the instruction box, the title. You can change all of the settings down here, so you have total control over all of this information. But it's really the second tab when you're editing that you want to show your question details by clicking the little box. And this will let you see the correct answers, and it will also let you check, does everything look normal? So in the transition from Blackboard to Canvas, some of the fonts and formatting is a little bit off. So I want you to definitely click the pencil if something looks weird. You can highlight the text and you can use the eraser. So when you hover over it, the little T with the eraser says clear formatting. And then that will strip any residual code that's sort of come over from the other system and clean up the look. You can also do the same thing for each of your answer choices, and making sure that the correct answer is in bold or some other indicator of what's right. Make sure you click done to save that work, and then make sure you click update question to save your changes. That's really, really important. When you scroll down, you're going to be able to save and publish. If you're fully finished, you can then save and publish. But when you come back to quizzes, I want to show you how we can use the plus to add a new quiz. This is something that we've got new quizzes coming up summer 2022. The classic quizzes is a little bit more streamlined. It is just a little bit easier to work with for right now. It's what you're going to be most familiar with. Don't feel like you have to make the switch, but I do definitely want to take a moment to say there is this new quizzes option. Now what it does, I'm going to say submit. It pulls all of your settings into this first place. So it's pretty familiar, right? But once I do this, I'm going to say new quiz. I'm going to, for the next week, I'm going to click save, and it's going to take me to the build area to make my questions. Next week on, I do believe the 28th of April, it's going to have a change and it's going to say save or build. So they got a little smarter on the workflow of which, just the user interface. So that change is coming and I'm excited for it because this way is a little weird. But when I click save, it's thinking about it and it's actually going to take me to build the quiz. So once I'm in here, I have ways to talk about, I can set settings, I can run reports, I can moderate to be able to change people's experience, and I can build everything right here. My questions are going to get added below my instruction box, and it's just going to pop up my selection of what I can choose to do. So it's a little different. There are no more practice quizzes or surveys. So that's going to be, to do a practice quiz, you would just make it not worth points, and it's a little bit different, but that's really, this interface is the biggest change, is that, some things have gotten a little fancier.
Any chance they upgraded the extra credit option?
That's a really good question, and I'm going to look into what was with adding assignment rubrics, and I will look into the feature comparison to show you kind of what we've got versus what we're getting, and send that over to you in the follow-up email. It's new, so we're really all just learning it kind of from scratch.
I'm hopeful that they'll improve that extra credit piece.
Yes, I feel like there's a handful. I mean, there's a lot of things they could do to improve, right? But there's a handful that would be just really good, and that's one of them.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to click the return button, and it's going to take me out of here, and it's going to put me back on my quizzes page. So I do want to show you that assignments, you can click the menu in the top right and edit all of your dates. This is going to be really useful for those of you who are cleaning up Blackboard, and like this course, I have nothing. I can go in and change all of my due dates, my open, my close dates, all in one spot, and do a bulk edit. So that's exciting. And then, of course, you can go back to quizzes, and you can get into your quiz banks, which you might also need to clean up. So you can tell I've got quite a bit going on here, and I may or may not want to edit them, depending on if you use your question banks. So that's really the overview of all of your graded assignment options. I do want to say I highly recommend, when you're building your course and you've got it set up, that you do take a minute in the student view to generate your test student. By clicking on that button, my test student has now been generated. I can go through and take my assignments and submit work so that I can then see how the speed grader functions. I can see how it's going to calculate my grades. And then, of course, if I've entered some information I no longer want, I can click Reset Student button here, and it will clear that data and let me start over. It's a really useful tool. And I will hang out and answer questions. Do you guys have anything specific on your minds about assignments or anything else?
I have a question, Melissa. You mentioned earlier that if students were taking a practice quiz, that you wanted them to be able to go back and use it to study. For example, it would be best practice to not set an until date. Does that mean that when you set the available date and you put until, it then makes it not available to them? Or can they see it? Can they see the questions? Or what happens to it when you put the until date?
Correct. So I'm going to go into classic quizzes just to show what everyone's familiar with. When you scroll down, you have the option to do a practice quiz. And when you do a practice quiz, it basically just takes away the grading parts. So that's really the main feature. But some people might want their practice quiz to be due, like if you do case 15 the first week, and the first week of class is going to be the 26th through the 30th, if you put a due date here, it's just going to pop up on their calendar feed and their to-do reminders and their course stream to say, hey, pay attention and do this. So it's useful, but what I was saying was that if you use the late policy in the gradebook, it won't know that you didn't mean it. So that's where I'm saying if it's a practice quiz and you have a late policy, then you don't want to use the due date. Now the available from and until, that is exactly what you described it. When you use, I make it available on the 25th and I close it and it's no longer available after the 30th. Students can't get to it before or after that date. This is the opening and closing lock days. The due date, if I don't have this information filled out and I've just put a due date, they can start it as early as they want and they can turn it in as late as they want. They can still keep doing it and it will just mark as late in your gradebook. So you're wanting to control behaviors with the available from and until.
If you,
Sorry, go ahead.
oh, sorry. If you want them to do a practice test, but and you mark that practice, and there's no grade going into a grade book, will it still show you who actually has completed it, so you could give them extra credit for doing the quiz?
Yes, but the only thing is that if you want the option to give the extra credit, you would want to make the quiz graded to have that column in the gradebook to do it.
Yeah, I guess I didn't mean extra credit. I meant participation credit, really. So that I could just see that they've taken it, and then I'd put that into a participation grade and not a grade, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yes, you can still see who has had the activity.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. So if I go in, there was another question while I'm getting myself set up to answer the second piece of that. Ask away.
Sure. So with the graded quizzes, I was under the assumption the way I set it up is, like, for example, the first quiz this semester, I had available from January 21st to January 22nd. So that was the availability of them to actually do it. But then I had a little bit above that. It says, let students see their quiz responses. And I set that to show correct responses at January 25th. That was after they took the group quiz. And then I had to hide those answers at April 30th. So to have it available to review, at least I was assuming that they're able to review, like go back and look at the quiz for study purposes throughout the semester, but they weren't able to access it to take it. Am I incorrect?
Okay. So hold on. I'm actually putting in, I'm taking a quiz as a test student so we can see some of these features you guys are talking about. So once you start talking in the realm of what the students can do and see, it's a little bit different of a conversation, right? Because I can't really show the student perspective. Well, hold on one second. Down syndrome quiz 5. I want to make sure I'm going back to the right place. So I'm going to submit this as a student. And what it is doing right here is it is showing me that it basically, I have it set to immediately allow me to see what I entered. And then the second layer of that, so I can see question 1, I answered this one. The second layer of that question is, when do you want them to see the correct answers? And that's the date control piece. So I can control when this shows, but I cannot date release this piece of it. So let me leave the student view and come back into quizzes, show you what I mean. So, and I probably should have clicked on that. Okay, so when I click edit, this first check mark here, I'm going to take this one off. This check mark, if I don't have it checked, students can't see any feedback or what they did at all. It will just, they took the test and it goes away and that's done. If I check the box, then it will basically let them see their quiz responses, okay? Then if I click let them see the correct answers, that's when I can show and hide those. And then what we're wanting to know is another layer of what happens with the available from and available until dates on what they can see. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say that this is available. It was available until yesterday. Oh no, we'll make it today, but we'll make it earlier, like at noon. So it was available until noon. So now I'm going to say it was available until noon to, right, 2 o'clock. It's a reasonable window. Well, let's just make it 3:45. I'm not sure if it's going to get upset because I took it in that window or if it's going to work, but let's see. So here's the window. Now it's locked to me because it's after 3:45, right? The due date, I'm just going to say, was 1:30. It could be the exact same time as well, right? We could also make it 3:45. So up here, I've got show me the correct answers. Let's say, Matt, what did you say you wanted them to be able to do? Go back and look at it after the fact.
So basically what I was trying to do is I was setting up an individual quiz. I wanted them to take it without getting any feedback, and then have a window to take the group quiz for a few days after that, 2 or 3 days. And then after the group quiz due date, to open up their responses and correct responses to the individual quizzes. What I'm hearing is they did get feedback from the individual quizzes immediately. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, if this was checked, they got it. So there's no way to automatically set the date and time to do that. It's just literally you say, okay, it is now past the individual window. Everybody had to, it's now locked. They've all had to take it. And now I want to release that they get the feedback now, and then I check the box. That's the only way that it works.
Okay.
And it is a feature request that they make the window option available for this entire thing.
Yeah, I think I had that. I was under a different understanding. So, but that's good to know. Okay, but are they? I haven't had any students come back and ask me, hey, could you open up the quizzes again so I could look at it? So I assume that they are seeing it. So if I'm understanding you right, the way I've got it set up right now is that they take the individual quiz and immediately get feedback on what they got wrong, but they're not told the correct answer. Is that right?
Got feedback on, well,
well, can I show you what I have on my settings? Is that all right?
yes. Let's take a look.
So I've got it right here.
I can pull you up if you like and pretend
Or
to.
if you just want to enable screen share, I'll show you my settings.
You should be able to do it now.
Okay. All right. So here's the, I have quiz pairs. This is the individual quiz 8. And I got it set up to show the correct answers at January 25th and then hide the correct answers at the end of this semester. So that's just for integrity purposes. So the actual due date was January 21st. So it's available from January 21st to 22nd. I have a 1-day window. And then so the way I have it set up, as soon as they took the quiz, what kind of feedback were they getting?
Incorrect questions were marked, but they don't know what the correct one was. So they know what they got wrong.
They just don't know which one.
They just don't know what the right answer is.
So if I wanted them to get no feedback for the individual quiz, then I would just uncheck this.
Yes.
And then I could, if I wanted to give them the opportunity to use it for review later, I would come back in after the fact and just check that.
Yes.
So I would just have to do some follow-up after the quiz.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I think I get it now.
Yeah, that
And
would
to follow up, I'm sorry, and to follow up on that quickly is when you check those boxes and they go back in for review purposes, for studying purposes, they can see everything, even if you've got feedback on all of the incorrect choices and reasoning and feedback on the correct choices, all of that is available to them.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So I was hoping I could go in and I could show you what it looked like for them, but all of my dates and it's not a real course and it's saying no, so it doesn't like it. It takes a lot to set up those whole testing environment in every single detail.
Can I ask a question for those of you, for Matt and Mona, that are are actually doing that and opening it up and having feedback? The reason that I haven't done that, I've been a little bit worried about it, is because, of course, if you want to use that exam over, even if you have them changed so you're not concerned about that?
So the ones that I'm doing it for they're like self-check 5-question reading quiz questions for 5 points. I don't do that. Well, I'll take that back. For quizzes, for like a whole case where I'm giving them an assessment that's cumulative worth a lot more points, I give them the opportunity to go back and review for a certain period, and then I close it, and then it's just sort of an academic honesty blurb that I put there.
So that's sort of what Matt was explaining. That's why he
Yeah.
makes that window so small.
Right.
Well, I leave it open for the duration of the semester because you had the same exact concerns as you, Karen. I used to have students come back to me and say, hey, could you open the quizzes? And I would tell them, no, I'm sorry, I can't because I want to protect the integrity. But, since COVID and all this, I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. And I just opened them up and it's really not been as problematic as I anticipated. I have no illusions to thinking that those are really well protected questions. And so I imagine like upperclassmen might be informative, but in all honesty, they remember the questions pretty well anyway. As soon as they take the questions, they can jot them down pretty quickly in their notepad so there's really no way to protect it anyway. So I've just kind of given up on that idea.
I'll add to what Matt's saying. I used to have like a set A quiz and a set B quiz that I would rotate. And honestly, it was a little bit of a nightmare. And so now I just, if you want to prepare for the final exam, do it the way you should do it. And I just leave it like that. Less of a
They're
headache.
formative. They're low stakes, formative kind of.
They're low stakes. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a question about, remember I was talking about earlier, if I wanted to have some assignments that I ended up not being graded at the end. Is another option for me to just create a new group that's ungraded assignments and then just move whichever ones I don't want to be calculated into that group at the very end?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. All right. And by the way, I went and I checked in that special magical box you told me about, and it was already unchecked. But they still can't see their total. I'm not sure what's going on. And it's probably what you were talking about, Matt. Maybe so like the total's hidden if there's an assignment that's ungraded. That's correct. Man, that's really annoying.
I'm gonna look at it. Let me find out.
It takes a while to get to grade everything.
Okay.
I had that same issue, and I just had, it was, there was a quiz. Well, it was one of these quizzes that I had their scores hidden, but from what I'm learning today, I don't think it mattered that I even hid those scores because they're getting instant feedback. Because the initial individual quiz before they take the group quiz, I hid their scores. So I had those set as manually posting to hide their scores so they didn't know how they performed when they go to the group quiz. But if they're getting instant feedback on their questions anyways, then that's a pointless endeavor. But because I had that hidden, it made the total hidden.
That could be the other motto for this academic year: a pointless endeavor. Sorry.
Which course are you referencing?
5524.
I'm going in to take a look.
I feel like my book is just
What? While you look for that, can I ask a question? The day I actually started, I mean, you guys must have been using Canvas before, but I mean, it's brand new for me. And I started building my course today. I finally made the big jump. And that little video in the center of the homepage, it's about structure. I mean, I watched it because I'm like, okay, so is that for the students, like to understand structure? I got rid of it because I thought if they think it's supposed to tell them something, what does it tell them? Or is that for us?
So are we talking about like what came in your academic course?
Yes. And it's got that video with the guacamole bowl in the center of the course. I mean, that's something the university is wanting for the students.
So yes, that is something they're wanting. I'm going to show you this course right here. So this is just an example that I was looking at it. So that's why I have it brought up. It has a welcome page, tells a little bit about what they're going to learn and tells them how to get started. So the structure. If I were to, I'm going to separate this. I'm going to put his actual course on one side and just kind of move over. And then over here, give me one sec. Basically, they wanted a way that every single person who gets an academic shell could have an idea of how to get this accomplished. So this right here, it's all about, this is your space.
You're not sharing it.
I'm not sharing it. Okay, yeah, let me do that. Let me pull that back up.
Rookie mistake.
Yeah, like I gave power to someone else and forgot to take it back. So yeah, now you should see what I'm looking at. Yes. Okay, so what she was asking is what is here versus this is an actual academic live course. So I can just go in and,
And I did do that. I mean, I fixed it and said welcome, and I told him the main things like go to the syllabus and go to the course outline. And then I talked about what it was an intro to whatever, but I got rid of that guacamole bowl. But then I didn't know if that was, since it says this element of structure, but that's for us.
yeah, this is an MIT video. It's 1 minute, 38 seconds long of that teacher saying, welcome to elements of structure. And this is what it's about. So if it's just an example, totally delete it.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely. And so I was looking into Nathan's course about students being able to see the total. So I'm in the student view. I'm going to grades. And it's going to say I'm missing everything because I haven't done anything because I'm a test student. And when I scroll down to the bottom, I don't understand why students would say they don't see the total.
Well, no, maybe they can. So I don't know. So when I'm looking at the total in my view, the total column on the far left, the one that's frozen, it has all the grades, but then it has an eyeball with a line through it. So maybe I don't know what that means.
Okay.
So I think what it might mean is that the total that you're seeing on the faculty view is the actual current total, but the student isn't seeing the unposted grades. So their total might look different than what you're seeing. What they see might look different than what you see.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Because I looked at this a little bit, and that was my understanding. And I could
and that's what it says. It says when I click on the eyeball, it says this grade differs from the student's view of the grade because some assigned grades are not yet posted. Well, how would I know what the students see?
I don't know. So, but basically the take home is the student doesn't see their current total until you've posted the unposted grades. They see, I think they see everything that's posted, but then they total up that, but they don't see the stuff that you have graded but not posted.
So yeah, because I made the mistake because like I don't grade all the assignments, so I don't grade them as they come in because I don't know which ones I'm grading yet till the end. So does that mean the whole semester they have not been able to see their running total because there's things pending grading and posting?
That's a really interesting question. So I'm literally going to be looking for the answer.
And it's on the far left. So you're on the far right of the gradebook right now. It's way over on the other end where the column I'm talking about.
Yeah. My interpretation was they see they see the running total of what's been graded, but they don't, it doesn't include, like if you've graded some of the stuff that's not posted, they don't see that in their running total. That was my.
Oh yeah, there it is. There's that column I'm talking about. Yeah.
Isn't that the weighted total right there?
Yeah.
So they're getting, yeah, whatever if you've weighted it all according to whatever your course outline says, then they're getting that weighted total for what you've graded.
Okay.
But what the student will see in their view is only what you've posted. So you might have graded some things but not posted it. You still have it hidden. So they're not going to see like this top one. They might not see 77.52. If you just graded something that you gave them a 50 on it, they might still be seeing 80 something % because they didn't see what the new bad grade in there. Does that make sense? As soon as you post it, and that's what happened with mine. As soon as I posted that last thing that was unposted, then that little eyeball went away in the total. Because now the students and I are seeing the same thing.
Okay. So there's a couple of things that are not done grading yet, and that's not me, that's another professor that has to grade that. And then there's several assignments. So should I go ahead and move the ones I don't want to grade, I guess, to the ungraded group? Maybe that'll help.
Why is there an eyeball on that weighted percentage thing that has a line through it?
So yeah, so what they're saying is that's saying that what I see and the students see is not the same, but I originally thought it meant that the students could not see it.
Well,
But just to
usually
see
you
that-
mark that when you set the column up, what column you want them to see or not see. Does that not work like that in Canvas?
Well, like if you scroll to the right, there's a couple hidden columns you had, right? Or wasn't there at least one or two?
Yeah,
There's several.
Yeah, so you've got to post those grades before the total will be up.
okay.
And I think if you post one column, I do think that the student's view is going to update. I guess I'm just taking that on faith. I don't really have great evidence of that.
Yeah,
but
I'm trying to find the documented evidence of what you're saying, because I would agree.
Sorry, I guess the difference is why is there not just an eyeball with a line through it at the top versus on every score?
Interesting.
I mean, that's the difference. No other column runs like that.
So scroll back. There was one that I saw you had one column that you had some students graded, but some not. And it was hidden. So
The hidden has to do with post grades. So he's got the grade posting policy set to manual. He wants to post them when he's done. And until you do that, we're saying that until this is released, the total, it's not showing to the students. And I would imagine because it's not right until you're done, right? Why would you show?
Well, I mean, there should be a total of what they have been graded already.
Yeah, running all the time, a running total. I've never seen that before, that it's actually, what it's doing is it's allowing you to, as you grade the person, because that other column had the eyeball lined over, which was the thing that, it wasn't open to be seen. But what that weighted column is saying is that as you grade it, that people independently, it's going to change. But see, it should be running all the time. As you grade those assignments, that weighted column should be updating. And the student should be seeing.
Well, it does for the faculty view. Like if you go in and enter a grade, even if it's hidden and you don't post it, you'll see that total change from the faculty.
But the student should be able to too. I mean, I had the very same column again in Blackboard, but this is new to me that there's an individual eye.
Yeah,
I mean, once you make it available for the students to see, it should be updating for them to see automatically.
And when I click the student view button and I go to look at grades from a student's perspective, I see it. I have at the bottom, I see this.
Okay, so it's probably just I have to grade everything, post everything, and then whatever I don't want to be counted towards the overall grade, I'll move to a new ungraded group, I guess, and then we'll be matched, I guess.
Theoretically, I'm going to look into the documentation some more. There's at least 30 to 40 pages of information. I'm going to try to wrap my head around that one a little bit better though before I try to act like I know the answer. Because I'm seeing this right here. I'm logged into this course. I see 3.77%, but in the gradebook I have a 2.86. Why? I have
I'm concerned about what my students, what information they're getting, as the semester has gone along,
Yeah, I mean, the best thing we could do is, why don't you tell me, everybody who's in this session right now, hold on, let me go ahead and stop recording and we can talk about